My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Martinez. I'm an executive assistant at an asset management firm supporting a partner. And today's leadership quote comes from Maya Angelou, and it is, "A leader sees greatness in other people. He nor she can be much a leader if all she sees is herself."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Are you tasked with ordering food for your office? Let me tell you about Easy Cater. With over 100,000 restaurants to choose from nationwide and 24/7 customer support, Easy Cater helps assistants like you and me succeed at work and makes our lives easier. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more. Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 250. You can check out the show notes for this episode at leaderassistant.com/250. I feel like I should have a celebratory announcement or soundbite or something to celebrate episode 250. That's a big number. For some reason, while I'm saying that number, I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe I've done that many episodes. But I don't have a special soundbite. All I want to say is thank you for listening. I'm excited to be here and excited to have you listen to episode 250. So today I am speaking with Leslie Martinez. Leslie is an executive assistant with years and years of experience. And Leslie, welcome to the show and congratulations for being episode 250.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate the invitation and excited to add my voice as well to all the amazing assistants that you've had on the podcast talking about this role.
Awesome. So tell us what city you're in and then what's your favorite thing to do outside of work right now?
So I'm in New York City. I'm a mom, and I guess one of my favorite things to do is like listen to podcasts and read. But also aside from that, I'm a mom. So there's a lot of play dates, connecting with other moms, things like that, going to the park. I do enjoy spending time with my son. So that's what I do.
Awesome. How old's your son?
He's turning 7 in January. So pretty small.
Nice. Great. I have a 10-year-old and a soon-to-be 12-year-old. So both boys. So fun
boys.
Ages for sure. Yeah,
They're a special case.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your career. And, you've got over 15 years of experience supporting executives. So what brought you into the world of assisting?
Great question. Definitely not something I planned for. In fact, I remember being in a business class where they talked about the executive assistant role, where it was like high visibility and some sort of impact, but there was no mobility. And that scared me. I was like, oh, this is no fun, because I was sort of already kind of, a coordinator in PR at the time. And a friend had just introduced me to the EA role at the time. It was at Merrill Lynch. And that's where I started my career. I started as a floating temp. And what that meant is that I got to go around the entire organization covering for women that were either on maternity leave or vacation. So I really got early on to experience early on what it was like to support an executive and to see how other really experienced executive assistants did it. They will have a sheet for us with training materials of like what needed to happen, all their personal information. And that was quite an experience. I feel like it was such a good entry point into this world, because I got to see the different departments, and that's sort of like how I ended up picking and like a department that I wanted to work for permanently. And I ended up in M&A at Merrill Lynch.
Oh, nice. So did you enjoy, or when did you realize that the assistant role was something that maybe you wanted to stick with or something that could be truly a career?
It took me a while, to be honest. I started when I was in my early 20s. I think it was 24. I did the math recently. So quite early, I was still going through college while I did it, and I was still pursuing a degree, trying to think about like what I wanted to do, and I simply could not figure it out. I realized now, wanting to branch out into like coaching, that I've always been sort of like a teacher and someone who enjoyed mentoring others. So I really just, couldn't really find something at the time that I was like, I want to stick to this. So this was great because I was earning an income, able to afford rent in New York City, take care of myself, be exposed to incredible people, very smart people, obviously working in the financial services industry. They come from like the top Ivy League schools. It was great exposure. So it took me a while though. At first it was just a job that I did well, because no matter where I go, I feel like I always take pride in what I do. And it's been so different everywhere I've been that I think that kept me interested and it kept me going. And I would say it has been, I would say most recently that I started to connect with this role in a different way. Not that I didn't take it seriously, I always did, but within the role, I always felt like there was something missing. And I would add on additional responsibilities to my role just to kind of fill that gap. What I mean by that is, in the role before the one that I'm in now, I currently support a partner at an asset management firm that has about 10 billion assets under management, just to give you a rough idea of the size of the company. It's about 120 employees. Prior to that, I was at Barclays, which is a huge organization, and it's very compartmentalized, and the role itself was not as robust. But I was supporting a lot of people in that particular role, and that worked for me because I was starting a family. So this was perfect. It was like the perfect work-life balance for me. It was ideal for me, for what I needed. But, after I kind of reached a stage as a mom, I was like, well, I find myself, creating, other things outside of this role and getting, involved with the diversity networks. Or one of the things that I did was start my own public speaking work, kind of like group. And I did it without first running it through the firm. I basically just posted on our internal board and I said, hey, I'm doing this pilot, program to test it out so that then we could pitch it to see if this could be a larger thing for the organization. And I had directors sign up and give incredible feedback about how they used that program to create a speech for the board that they were in, the nonprofit board that they were in.
Wow.
So like I've always taken my role extremely seriously. Like I enjoy coming to work. I've always enjoyed the role, but I think in this last role that I started to realize I really do. This is it. Like this role picked me in a way. And I actually have all the traits for this role, at least in my experience and the people that I've supported. I feel like my personality is a good fit for this type of role. I hope that answers your question. But
no, yeah, that's great. So what would be maybe your top two personality traits or characteristics of what someone in this role or someone that wants to be in this role needs to embody?
That's a great question. I think it's very personal to the person looking into this role, because as I mentioned, there's so much variety in the EA role that you could have pretty much any trait and find the place where you would fit and belong. For I care. That's one of my personality traits. I care. I am a feelings person. I am very logical, and I could do things well, and I could do both left and right brain things. But at the end of the day, I do like taking care of people. And that's why I think I do really well supporting like high level executives, because I'm very mindful of what's going on in their entire life, not just at work. And I think that's highly valued when someone could come in and support you in your business, but also be mindful of, hey, this is what's happening in this person's family life. How can I make sure that I am not overbooking him when he needs to be attending, a school event, or something like that? How can I be discreet about those things? I think that that's important and that has helped me a lot. But I want to say to those listening that don't focus on what I'm good at or what my traits are. Think about what are your values and what are the things that you're good at. And I guarantee you that you could find a seat as an EA supporting someone that would really benefit from those things that you bring to the table. I don't mean to be general, but you have some people that are very logical, very methodological. Everything is a method, or very left brain, and they do really well with operations or COOs, people that need a little bit more structure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love how it's like, there's not, you could say, okay, there's general characteristics that assistants should have or whatever, but I love how you are highlighting that everyone's unique and that even in your uniqueness, you can match up with an executive or a team that needs those skills, those unique traits that you have. And then someone else, another assistant in another world, could have totally different skills and totally different personality and traits, but match up well with their team. So
absolutely. I 100% agree that. And I agree with that. And I have seen that happen. Like I stand by that. And I don't think there's just like a set of skills that you need to, skills, yes, but personality traits, I think you really could come as you are and find the right spot for you.
Yeah. Nice. So, okay, I have to come back to this because you mentioned the public speaking training or workshop or whatever that you did for your internal team. What got you into that? And then what's your number one tip for public speaking?
I love that question. What got me into that is my fear of public speaking. And I said, I'm not going to let fears hold me back. So if fear is trying to get a hold of me, I'm going to face it. And so, of course, this didn't come easy. And the thing is that I had been struggling with speaking, as I mentioned also before when we spoke, we chatted a little bit, struggling with visibility and standing up in front of a stage. Doing this was extremely intimidating. I never would have done something like this years ago. Sometimes the things that we fear are our superpowers, and it just takes a while for us to connect with that. And so that's what I'm kind of like embracing more of and trying to align more, but bringing it back to public speaking. I've been working on this since I was in high school. So in high school, I got introduced to Toastmasters. And, it was like a program that we had the option to sign up for. Actually, I think it may have been mandatory or we got some sort of credit, but I signed up. And I remember that that's how I got my very first internship, because the person speaking said, don't be afraid to connect and ask people for an introduction. And at the end, I said, well, you said this, and I'm really interested in advertising. At the time, I really genuinely was interested in publishing and advertising. And I said, will you mind introducing me to HR? And that's how I got my first role as a media planner assistant, I think, at the time. It wasn't a media planner assistant. It was an internship. And then they promoted me to be a media planner, but without the title because I was like not even 19. And that helped me get into Hofstra University because I came in with, a lot of recommendations. But, I just want to share something, pause before I continue talking about public speaking and share that right after high school, I was so confused about what I wanted to do. Again, this confusion of like not having explored enough different options was a theme for me, and feeling like, I was not on the right path. I was in the Academy of Finance in high school and feeling like, is this my role? I'm not sure. Like I felt like it was, but I couldn't find where I fit in. I ended up going to the Catherine Gift School. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I had never heard of it, but they came to pitch us in the high school, and I did it for a year. And it was incredible that really their focus is training EAs. Like that's one of their core things that they do. They were known for it. I actually researched it now, like a year, like maybe I would say like a little less than a year ago. I was like, let me look into this because this is really interesting. And they were known for training some of the best assistants out there.
Interesting.
So something to look into. And it was just so weird. Like in a way, like now that I look back at it, I'm like, I've been put on this path for, in a weird way. wasn't really by choice. But going back to public speaking, so again, I didn't do really well in that class. I did get up and speak, but I was so nervous. I was shaking. Terrible, terrible. Then at Morgan Stanley, I noticed that they had a Toastmasters chapter. So I joined them as well. Again, I would show up to the meetings, but never got on stage, never able to break that fear. And then finally at Barclays, I was working through that fear of speaking. And there was one of the really high level, like share women brought in a nonprofit organization called Plus Acumen. If you want to look it up. And they do a lot of like work, social work, I guess. And they train leaders in social services and all over the world. And they had classes that you can take. And one of them was storytelling for change. And again, I was still aligning with like, how can I tell a story? How can I communicate? How can I speak? So I signed up for that course, and that course said, hey, invite your colleagues to join so you can make a better use of this experience. And I'm like, where am I going to get people that are interested in this? So I posted in the board and I said, let me do this as a pilot. Let me see who signs up. I had 30 people show up from all over the organization. I mean, this is a very big organization. So, thousands of people. So I had people from middle office, front office, not so much, maybe 2 that I invited myself because I was in front office then. Some people from finance, from HR, some people from technology showed up, and it was a full room. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So a lot of us are struggling with that, and it was very, very intense. It was about 8 weeks with a lot of work, maybe 2 hours of work a week. So a lot of people dropped by the end. So I ended up, with about 10 people out of the 30 something that showed up. And then out of that, maybe 5 completed all the exercises and actually utilized it in their work. But yeah, that's how that came about. And then we were in the process of introducing it through the Latino network when I left to go to another organization, but I kind of left that behind for them. So they had all the information, but we definitely went through the full program once, and it was amazing. But that's how that came about.
Wow, that's crazy. So is the program kind of Toastmaster? I know I'm semi-familiar with it. Did they kind of guide you through the program and you kind of facilitated it for your group? Is that what happened?
Yeah, so Toastmasters is a bit more complicated because you have to sign up for a chapter. There's a whole process. But yes, there are modules and guides that you share with everyone. You learn about timekeeping and counting the ums and the ahs and, just structure of the speech and all that, the different types of speeches. So yes, that's what that's about. And I mean, you could do something unofficial because they have all their documents online, like tons of pamphlets you can use yourself if you wanted to do that.
Nice.
And then storytelling for change was like an 8-week program in which they help you, basically connect with your own story so you could be a better storyteller. And I think that did a breakthrough for me because it was a little bit less left brain, less logical, less this is a structure of of a story. Yeah. Of a speech. And this is more like, hey, what's your story? How can you connect with people? And then move on from there. So that gave me permission to be more me and more open about my story. Oh. Also, hearing other people's story and how vulnerable they got in that room was incredible. Some of the experiences that we heard and we share made us so connected after that. Like we will never forget that experience because it was so personal.
Yeah. That's great. So, one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is, I have people from all over. My focus is obviously executive assistants, but, everyone has a story to tell. And so my whole thing is if you're an assistant or you have an assistant, you have a story to tell that I want to hear and I want to talk to you about it. So let's dive in a little bit, if you don't mind. What's one of those practical things that maybe you learned throughout that course and that process of the storytelling workshop that is maybe something that you can help others with as far as, hey, I need to get better at telling my story. What would you recommend?
I mean, I would recommend don't do it alone because I found that I made the most progress when I was doing it with somebody else. So definitely leverage any programs that you can find online or any resource or any help. And then in terms of what I learned in the program, there's so much vulnerability that goes into telling a story and not to fear that. So in order for you to be a good communicator, you have to own your story. Those stories are the ones that are going to come in and help you have conversations like this. So if you have resistance with that, it'll be very hard to open up. Or if you feel like, oh, I don't have enough experiences to share, it'll be very difficult to come up with ways to get up on stage. You'll see that any leader, even when they're presenting something business related, there's always some sort of story, connected to it, right? So,
Yeah.
Getting to know yourself really well will be super helpful in that journey of being able to communicate better.
Mm. Nice. And then, okay, so I have a story and I'm anxious about public speaking and I'm about to go up on stage or go up in front of the team and I'm about to present. What's one like you've got this public speaking tip?
Oh yeah, great. This is one that I learned that I think is amazing. Breathing. You have to take a couple of deep breaths before you go in there and set an intention about what it is that you want the audience to receive and how you want to feel. So one of the things that I do before I got here is I said out loud some of the things that I wanted to say. It wasn't really rehearsal. I was just sort of like saying it out loud. Do I like the way this sounds? Do I feel confident in this message? So a little bit of practice, of course, not too much. As you know, this conversation has been completely different than what I was saying out loud. But
Right.
that's sort of like open me up ahead of time, open up those vocals. And so a little bit of practice ahead of time, taking deep breaths before going on stage, and obviously setting an intention for what it is that you want to communicate and how you want to feel when you are going on that stage.
Nice. Love it. Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing and humoring me on that. I wanted to really get in. I'm really, really find it fascinating, the whole public speaking. And, I watch a lot of, I've worked with very good public speakers and supported very good public speakers. But then I've also like watching like comedians and stand-up comedy and how one of my favorites is Mike Birbiglia. He tells a lot of stories in his comedy and he's just such a good storyteller and presenter. And so I love to learn as much as I can about presenting and storytelling. And one of the things that I love that my kids hate because I always hound them on this, you mentioned counting the ums and ahs, and the filler words. Um, Speaking of filler words, I just used one, but I'm like, hey, that's a filler word. I asked my son a question and he starts, and I'm like, try not to use your filler words. So what's been the best thing that's helped you as you learned that and as you counted, I know part of training is like you record yourself speaking and then you count how many ums and ahs and how many filler words you use. What's helped you avoid those?
I still do them often, but pausing, because I think we're afraid of the pause.
Mm,
Pausing,
yeah,
as you're thinking about putting in that filler word. And pausing is really what helps in that situation, because that's all you're trying to do to avoid the pause.
right. Love it. I've heard it. Somebody said, what they say? Oh, it was like be comfortable with the silence. Be comfortable
Right.
with the silence. And the problem is we're uncomfortable with the silence, so we got to fill it with like and
Exactly.
and and all the filler words. So
And you actually come across so much more confident when you pause.
yeah,
You come across as a thinker. You're deep thinking, into something, something that you're going to say.
intentional and yeah.
Yeah. And it actually gives you time to, think about what you're going to say a little more. So
Awesome. Well, Leslie, let's jump into the idea and the topic of how to land your ideal role. You've put together a resource that I'm going to link in the show notes, but it's a free guide called 5 Overlooked Steps to Landing Your Ideal EA Role. Is that right?
yeah, that's right. I'm so excited to put that out there for people to use in this time. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people are out there looking for work. I see it. I've been applying.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your maybe give us a high level tease of that resource, and what are your tips for those looking for their ideal assistant role?
Yeah. First, I want to talk briefly about three mistakes that I see people do a lot, and then maybe talk about how to change that a little bit, and then just like give you an overview of what you can expect in that resource. But the number one mistake that I see people do when they are looking for a job is actually not thinking about what is their ideal. And they're scrolling around, applying to every single job out there that is within their salary range or perhaps their industry without any focus whatsoever. So going back to that idea of like, what are you good at? What are your skills? You should be aligning with someone who could utilize that, because that's natural. That creates a natural connection. If you're very left brain and you like to organize things, hopefully what you're looking for is keywords in those job descriptions that describe that. Someone who's going to be meticulous about their work and planning. So scrolling and applying to every single job out there just because it's in your industry or salary range does not work, because you might get a call back, but connecting in that interview is going to be really hard if you're just shooting blanks. So the problem here is that there's no clarity about the details of the position that you're seeking. And so it's hard to make that clear connection, when you're having that conversation with, when you actually make it to the interview, it's hard to connect if you don't have this glue that is, hey, this is why I'm amazing at this, and this is why this is so perfect. But not just that, right? Because I don't approach interviews in that manner, but at some point that connection needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So the solution here is to get clear about who it is that you want to support. What kind of person do you want to work for? What kind of work do you want to be doing? What is important to you? What hours and schedules are ideal for you? What office environment are you looking for? What type of culture and values? Like, think about all these things. Take a moment to just grab a journal and think about ideals without really thinking about like, oh, but is this possible? Or does it exist? Or am I being irrational? No, think the sky is the limit, right? Just think about what is ideal. Design that ideal role. And if you get at least 3 of those 10 things that you wrote, you might be happier than if you get none. You know what I mean? So, I think the first mistake is really just mindlessly scrolling and applying to every job that you find that is within your salary range or industry. Let me know if you have any questions on that, but I'm happy to share the second mistake that I see out there.
No, yeah, let's go. Keep going. I love it.
All righty. So the second mistake that I see a lot of women make is that they think that there's lack of jobs out there. And this is a mindset problem that's going to align you with more lack. So if you're thinking there's not enough jobs, I apply and it's true, there's 200 applicants within like 10 minutes, that's fine. But if you're thinking like, I'm never going to get, a call back, or there's too much competition, or there's not enough jobs out there, that's the energy that you're bringing to the table. What makes you stand out? Like, what makes you great? Like, what is your thing that's going to make you stand out for those roles? I think it goes back to clarity, because once you can make that connection in your story about why this is the ideal for you, you can move the needle in that direction, and you could focus only on those roles that are perfect for you. And, you get more momentum than applying to like every single thing out there. But, there's definitely not lack of jobs out there. There's definitely a lot of competition, but you can definitely stand out. So a solution for this is, once you have more clarity about what you're targeting, you can play around and expand your search a bit from there. Like, let's say, I know I like supporting people one-on-one. I think that's where I do my best work. I might branch out and look at other industries that are not financial services. So I might look at startups, or I might look at VCs. I might look outside of what I'm used to, but I still stick to executive assistant to CEO or executive assistant to a partner. So you expand your search from there, not necessarily changing the core thing that is important to you. So again, let me just think of, some things that come up, when you think about lack of jobs out there, like people are getting work. So why not you? You know what I mean? That's one way to look at it. I remember, just recently I helped someone get a job within a month and a half. So there's certainly not a lack of opportunities out there. Okay, so the third point is not getting help. So this is twofold. This could be help from your network or the people that you know, or getting help from a professional or a coach, someone that can help you uncover the things that you cannot see, your own blind spots. So not getting help is really, and if you're going to keep doing the same things over and over again and not getting results, how can you break out of that? Sometimes you need it could be a class, it could be a book, it could be a program, it could be somebody that you reach out to in LinkedIn that is another assistant that is doing what you want to do. Those things can really help you break out of, the limitations that you have in your mind. So getting help is extremely important. And those are the three things that that I have observed. There are more, but I'll leave it there for now.
No, that's great. That's super helpful. And, I'll link to your full resource, free guide, 5 overlooked steps to landing your ideal EA role in the show notes. You can go to leaderassistant.com/250, leaderassistant.com/250 to grab that resource from Leslie. And it's a great resource. So thanks for providing that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And yeah, there you're going to get 5 real tips of, things that tweaks that you could potentially make in your search. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys come over to this site and I'll definitely stay connected after you get the resource. I will send you emails.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for your tips on public speaking and landing your ideal role. Just curious, you've been in the financial services industry for a while. Is there something that's kept you in that industry?
Yes.
I know assistants our skills are transferable to any industry.
Yes.
I used to work in a nonprofit and now I work in a for-profit software company, and my job is essentially the same, just a totally different industry, totally different world, but essentially the same job. So yeah, what do you love about that industry? What's kept you?
Yeah. That's a great question. I sometimes think about branching out as well. I'm very entrepreneurial. Definitely people put you in a box, but I will say that I have been intentional about seeking out these roles and I have looked at startups as well, and I have made it through pretty advanced stages, but I think comfort it could be an enemy in some ways, but also it's a very steady. I like security, and I somehow feel that a sense of security working in this industry, it's not always there and available at, say, a startup or at another organization. So I do value that sense of security that the financial services industry provides. I feel like it's a good fit because since high school, I was in the Academy of Finance. I just feel like and I study finance in college. So I just feel like it's a natural fit. As I mentioned, I'm very entrepreneurial. So I am really curious about VCs and, startups and, places like that where there's more entrepreneurs, because I think that could also be a good fit that I have not explored in the past. So.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, thanks again for being on the show and sharing your story. If you just kind of as a last word, you're in New York, and I was just in New York in, the Times Square and the billboards and all the craziness. And if you could put a phrase or a statement on a billboard that assistants of the world would read or would see, what would you say? What would you put on that ad?
Ooh, for assistance specifically.
Yes.
You, with a lot of hesitation, but you have more power than you realize.
Love it. That's perfect. Let's get it. Let's sign up now. Let's get it on Times Square. Let's do this.
You have more power than you realize. As assistants, we always try to stay under the cover, but we're very influential with the people that we support. And I think we know that, but we sometimes still feel very subordinated sometimes in this role. We haven't worked on our mindset.
Well said. Great way to end the conversation. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you. Hopefully, we can connect next time I'm in New York. And LinkedIn, is that okay for people to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Okay,
definitely.
great.
My last name is a little different because Martinez is my married name, but definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. And I'll share that link in the show notes as well. And people can reach out and grab your resource and then also reach out on LinkedIn. So thanks for being on the show. Hope you have a great night. And best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for the invitation. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all the voices that come on your podcast. I just got your book today. Didn't want to read it before.
Oh, nice.
For the show, because I thought, you know what, I know there's going to be so much good stuff and, be influenced by it. And I just wanted to save it for later. So I can't wait to dive in.
That's great. Well, I hear it's an okay book, so I hope it's all right.
I read through took a look at what's in it, the content, and I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be really good.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com